I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order because we're all here, and I'm just taking a look at the agenda. So, Tanessa, will you please do the roll call?
No problem. Jacob Beach. Oh, you're muted.
Present in Kalamazoo.
Perfect. Gabby De La Cruz.
Present in the city of Kalamazoo.
Jessica Glenn.
Present in the city of Kalamazoo.
Marissa Harrington.
Present proudly in the city of Kalamazoo.
And Janine Brown.
Present in the city of Kalamazoo.
Thank you. You're muted, Gabby.
Sorry about that. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. I actually wanted to make a motion to postpone the item 6E, the Civil Rights Board name discussion, just because I feel like it'll be better if we take more time at a different meeting in the future. Does someone want to second that?
I would second that.
Okay, and can we have a vote, please? Those in favor say A of postponing that discussion.
Aye.
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 Aye. Let's see, there are 5 of us. So then that would pass, right? Because there are 3. Oh,
Well, yeah,
sorry.
you have to ask for any opposed.
Any opposed? Sorry about that.
Aye. Janine Brown.
Okay. So Janine, just to clarify for myself, you're voting to keep it on this agenda?
Yes, I am voting
Okay.
on the agenda. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so 3 ayes and 1 nay. So I guess we're just going to postpone it then. All right. And now moving on to the next item is the approval of the minutes for the last meeting. Can we have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved. This is Director Harrington.
Director Beat, second.
And can we have a vote to approve the minutes from the last meeting? Those in favor say aye.
I'm sorry, just one moment. I have one amendment. I was actually present at that meeting, but came late and I'm marked as absent. Could we have an edit to those?
Sure.
Yes, I can make that edit.
Okay, great. So Attorney Robinson, do we make a new motion to
The motion would be to accept the minutes as amended
okay.
or edited in this case.
Okay, so I move to accept the minutes as edited. Does anyone have a second?
This is Director Harrington. I'll second.
Great. And those in favor of approving the minutes as edited, say A.
Hey.
Hey.
Aye, sorry. I keep saying
Aye.
Hey, aye, all of
Oh,
it.
you. You know.
Let me
Say the vowel.
suggest for clarity's sake, and this is again something I advocate for plain English, that you should ask for yes or no. Then it's pretty clear.
Okay, that's better for me too. Okay, and those opposed say no. Okay, so we've approved we've accepted the minutes as edited. So then the next item is public announcements and communications. Are there any announcements and communications?
Not at this time.
Thank you. All right, so now we're going to go on to new business. Item 6A is vacant board positions, process and timeline. I'm not sure what exactly we were going to discuss. I guess, I mean, that's in our bylaws. My understanding is that we are just going to have somebody else appointed based on like the initial pool of applicants. But if anyone has a different understanding, or if you wanted to clarify for us, Attorney Robinson, go ahead.
But yeah, there's a variety of things that can be done. Ultimately, it's the city commission that appoints members to this board. They can certainly ask for new applications, but since this board is only about a year old, there may be other applications of people who applied and didn't make a nomination who might be viable candidates. So that's really up for the city commission really to figure out how they want to approach that in terms of either going back to the pool that existed or asking for a whole new pool.
Okay.
So,
And again, and there's nothing wrong with this board suggesting people or urging people to put their name in for nomination.
so this is Director Beach. I requested to be on this agenda. So what is the timeline for having someone else appointed for the vacant positions?
I don't know that there is one. Unlike
That process start, I guess. Is the process in motion?
I doubt that. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. Obviously, with the inability of the city commission to meet in person, some of this stuff gets swept into the corners a little bit. So I think that as long as there was one vacancy, there are things that weren't as urgent when Dr. Graham Williams left. But now that Mr. Howard has left, then I think it's probably a more urgent that vacancies get filled.
How do
So-
we request to be on the agenda for the next city commission meeting? Or this appointment to be discussed?
Well, they wouldn't necessarily, I suppose they could discuss it. That's under policy items, how they want to approach that. And
So-
I would, that certainly can be, since there's the city manager's office has control of the agenda, that should probably go through the city manager's office to request that matter be put on the agenda. The agenda for the 7th, which is the next meeting, was closed as of late this afternoon.
So I guess maybe it's not the agenda we need. How as a board can we make sure that process has started and applications are getting reviewed by the city or city commission? We just do have 2 vacancies, and so I want to just make sure that ball is rolling. So if I don't know if my vice mayor, or Attorney Robinson, I just want to make sure that ball is rolling.
Vice Mayor Griffin here. Thank you, Jacob. And Attorney Robinson, you can certainly help to clarify, but as my understanding, as a board, you all would come up with your nomination for who you all would like to see, and that would come up to the city commission. And then that would get approved or not at a commission meeting. And so you all have the opportunity to decide how you would like to proceed.
This is Director Harrington. Clarifying question. Can we be sent the applications of previous people to have a starting point? And if the onus is on us to get started, then I think we're fine with that. I think we just wanted clarity on who is supposed to get the ball rolling. So if it's on us, then we definitely can do that. I would love to see the previous applications to see if we can pull from there instead of starting from scratch.
This is Director Beach. I would agree with what Director Harrington says. If it's on us to get started, I would like to see those applications, and whoever can make that happen, I'd be very appreciative.
This is Director Glenn. I would also recommend that a member of the board, if not members of the board ourselves, hold those interviews that had previously taken place for these respective appointments. If it is us nominating a group of people or a person to the commission, then I would recommend it be this body that holds those interviews, or a portion of this body as well. And as such, would make a motion to form a committee to handle the nomination process of the future board members.
I would second that. I echo what everything Director Glenn said. I would second formation of that nomination committee.
So Director Glenn motioned to create a committee to find somebody to nominate to this board, and Director Beach seconded that. Can we have a vote? Everyone in favor say yes.
And we have two positions, just to clarify. So to nominate both of those vacant seats.
Okay. Should I restate that, or should we?
Yeah, let's restate it.
Yes,
Just covers
yes,
all
thank
of the
you.
vacancies. Thank
Okay.
you.
So Director Glenn moved to create a board, sorry, not a board, a subcommittee to nominate people for these two vacancies on this board, to serve on this board. And then Director Beach seconded that motion. Can we, everyone, sorry, I don't know why I'm stumbling. So everyone in favor say yes.
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 And everyone opposed say no.
No, Janine Brown.
So 4 in favor and 1 opposed, so the motion moves, and so we're going to create a subcommittee. The motion to create a subcommittee to find 2 people to nominate to serve on this board passes.
You may want to appoint individuals this evening to serve on that, and you may want to include the vice mayor as a commission liaison, or maybe another commissioner. And you may also want to include Ms. Bonner as a possible member of the committee.
Okay, so then for this committee, because there are only 5 of us left, does that change the amount of people that can meet as a subcommittee?
Well, that's where my question came in, because we're not that big at this point. I just didn't see the necessity of creating a subcommittee. It's only 5 of us. So why couldn't we just as a board together? Because it's, I mean, unless we think for some reason it'd be difficult, but that's where I just didn't understand it. Why are we breaking it down?
Here's
Sorry, Mike.
If I may, Commissioner Brown, the reason for a subcommittee, it gives you a little more flexibility. If you meet together as the Civil Rights Board, you're subject to the Open Meetings Act. But you can create a subcommittee that is only making a recommendation. So you can get out, and this is what a lot of the other city boards do, is that they, when they hold these nomination type of approaches, they're not subject to the Open Meetings Act.
This is Director Harrington, and if I may add, with Stella Harrington in the background fussing, there is already an education subcommittee with 3 of us on it, and I personally don't think that we all need to sit on all the subcommittees, even though there are only 5 of us.
And I will, this is Director Beach. I'll be honest, I don't have the bandwidth personally. I am on the education committee, and we have talked about some next steps, and I don't necessarily have the bandwidth right now to sit through those interviews. I would, if Vice Mayor would be willing to be part of that committee with Director Bonner, I would be very appreciative, because I think that insight would be greatly added to that process.
This is Vice Mayor Griffin, and yes, I have no problems being part of that committee if that is what this board would like.
Okay, so who is interested in being in that subcommittee?
I would be happy to do that. This is Director Glenn. I have not provided any assistance on the education subcommittee, for which I'm grateful for all of your efforts. So feel obliged to step in.
With my HR background, I'm more than willing to help with the interview process. So I'll throw my hat in the bag.
Okay, so Attorney Robinson, can I just appoint Director Glenn and Director Brown to that subcommittee? Or do we need to vote?
You have what is called the prerogative of the chair. So you can make that appointment, and unless somebody challenges you, the action stands.
Okay, I'm going, as chair of the board, of the Civil Rights Board, I'm going to appoint Director Glynn and Director Brown along with to serve along with Vice Mayor Griffin and Director Bonner, Dorla Bonner, to that subcommittee to find someone to nominate to this board. two people. All right. So is that the end of this discussion? Okay. Next item of business is 6B is the board chair discussion and nomination. So whoever wanted that added to the agenda can go ahead. You're muted, Director Beach.
Thank you. This is Director Beach. I added that with us having our board chair sit down. Luckily, we have Director Cruz stepping in. I know it's up to our prerogative if we have a chair and vice chair versus both, but I thought it would be great to us to have that discussion, and if so, nominate either a new vice chair or a new chair, whatever that discussion leads us.
I'm with you on that, Director Beach. I think definitely as we're moving forward, I mean, we can get new people, but to me, the chair or the vice chair should be someone who's already been serving, just for the ease. Because even now, sometimes even we're stumbling a little bit. So I wanted to just kind of second that it should, at least I recommend that it should be someone who's already been serving on the board as they kind of have an understanding of how all of this works a little bit better. So then that way someone's not starting from scratch coming in as the chair. That's just my thought process. And then I would like to recommend, actually, and I don't know how she feels about this, but Gabby Dela Cruz, I would like to nominate you honestly as the chair. And I'm going to throw Sister Harrington in there as vice chair just because of her tenacity. And I'm just throwing that out there. Have fun with that. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm happy to continue serving as chair. How do we go about this, Attorney Robinson? Do we just vote for?
Well, I first off, I take that as it's a motion to appoint you as the new chair and Member Harrington as the new vice chair. You need a second, and I would always ask if somebody wants that position. Obviously, you've indicated your willingness.
I don't want y'all. I mean, I wanted to make sure that was okay. So wait, let's not throw the motion out yet. I was just saying if that was okay. But I think these two ladies would do an amazing job. Just throwing that out there.
Thank you.
Director Harrington, are you interested in serving as vice chair?
Yes.
Oh, great. Well, I'm interested in you serving as vice chair.
Hey, somebody knows a little something, huh? How about I know a little something? Yeah.
I think all you need is a second to that motion, and you can vote on it.
Yep, this is Director Glenn. I would second that motion.
Well, you want me to make the motion a little more formally? Because really, honestly, I was just throwing out an idea. Here, let me formally make it, and then that way we can put it on. So Director Brown is formally recommending that Gabby Dela Cruz would step into the chair role for this board, and that Marissa, excuse me, I can't even say your name, Marissa Harrington, excuse me, Director Harrington, would step into the vice chair position for the board. And that is my motion, yes.
And any seconds?
I would second that motion.
Okay, so Director Brown motion to have me, Director Dela Cruz, step in as chair, and Director Marissa Harrington step in as vice chair. So everyone in favor of this, say yes.
Yes.
Yes. From
Yes.
Brown, nice and strong, yes.
And no one is opposed. So that motion moves forward. All right, great. Hopefully I'll be better at running these meetings sometime soon.
Thank you,
You're
ladies.
doing an awesome job.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Congratulations to the Chair De La Cruz and Vice Chair Harrington. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Yeah, they're here.
I'm very excited.
So the next item of business is 6C Educational Committee update.
I'll pass it to Vice Chair Harrington to give an update.
Yes. So the Education Committee just had a really productive meeting last Friday, where we talked about the overall goal of the Civil Rights Board and our original mission and intent, right? And a large part of that, or most of it, honestly, is educating the community, right? We have now been in existence for almost a year, and there has been some education that has been conducted and that we've offered. Much of it has been for landlord education and just kind of general fair housing. We think that it would be wise now in this, I guess, tenure of the board to pivot is the word. I'm tired of saying this word. Everybody's saying pivot, but that's what it is. To pivot to the community of the residents that we're actually serving. So we want to make sure that people who are renters know their rights. We want to simplify the steps that we're communicating to the community about how they can file a complaint, what their rights are. And we just honestly feel like the best way to do that is not via Zoom meetings. I mean, Zoom is great, right? And obviously the safest choice. But we think we need to take this information and this education to the community. You know, our most vulnerable residents are not on Facebook watching our meetings, right? The people that need to know this information, you know, may not be going to the City of Kalamazoo website and digging on there and trying to figure out who the Civil Rights Board is and what we're doing, right? So we would like to propose, and obviously we know that there will be some immediate action items that are involved in this, but we would like to propose to have some education sessions that are specifically centered on letting the community know what their rights are, what the ordinance is, and how the steps that they can take to file a complaint if they feel like someone has been in violation. Take that to them, have sessions at different community centers around the city, being COVID safe, obviously, and for the board of directors to conduct those sessions, because that's what we're here for. Obviously, these presentations would be pre-planned and thorough, right? We would all be working off of the same template and script, get on the same page about the facts that we're communicating. But we just think it's really important for us to start getting into the community and communicating to the folks who need our services the most, I guess, what they can and should do in the event that they feel like they've been discriminated against. Did I miss anything, Director Beach?
I just think, and we are looking to do this. I think, did you talk about timeline or did I just miss it?
I just said quickly, but time is of the essence. But you can talk about timeline. Right.
We are talking within probably the next 6 to 8 weeks, really getting our first ones in the getting into each neighborhood at least one time. Because then after that you get into winter, holidays, the schedule becomes, it gets harder for people to get out. And so that's kind of when we are looking at it. We have a lot of charges and like Director Harrington said, it was a really productive meeting. Director Bonner is providing us with a lot of information about what type of materials we can get, and what resources we have to get materials printed and out into the community and developed. So we're working on that. So really exciting progress, and really excited about what is to come.
So other than like being available to conduct these trainings or info sessions for the community, what else do you need from the rest of the board? What does the education committee need from the rest of the board to make this happen?
Just that. I think
Just
just
that.
your availability, your willingness to, availability and willingness to learn the materials and do the sessions and be present. We at least want two board members at every session, but I don't think that's a minimum. I don't think that's the maximum. I think that's just what we want. But I think that's really what we're asking is for the board member, the commitment to that is what we need from, I think, our other fellow board members.
And then Attorney Robinson, this wouldn't be in violation of the Open Meetings Act, correct? Because we would be doing info sessions or trainings.
Right, you would not be deliberating toward a decision, so it wouldn't be a meeting. I do have one suggestion, but I do have a question first. How long do you think these sessions would be if they're just information? Because if they are like a half hour or so, you might be able to ask neighborhood associations for some time on their schedules. So you wouldn't have a separate meeting in a neighborhood. You could piggyback. And I know many of the neighborhood associations open themselves up to presentations because I've done that with several associations. So if you're looking for like a 20-minute to half hour, maybe up to 40 minutes, oftentimes they're looking for speakers or topics to address at those meetings.
That's a fantastic idea.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So our
This is
timeline is
correct.
about 30 to 40 minutes is the timeline we're going to be looking that presentation is going to be. So we can go to local meetings like Attorney Robinson.
This is Director Glenn. Can you speak a little bit about what, in addition to just meeting, going out into the community and kind of, doing a public information campaign, can you speak a little bit about the organizations or, existing groups, to Attorney Robinson's good point about, using neighborhood associations or any other groups that you're thinking about collaborating with? Because I'll tell you that, in my work, doing direct representation, and in some instances representing tenants who are victims of discrimination, most of the time my clients don't know, right? They know something's happened. They know that they've been discriminated against, but they don't have a name for it. And they don't know which forum to go to. And I'm thinking about all of the entities in the community, and I'm sure you've had these conversations, right? Like Open Doors or the YWCA, and obviously, Director Beach, you're coming from HRI, but these institutions that are doing a lot of this advocacy and kind of, have already an existing body of advocacy underway. That was a rambling question, but just if you could just speak to the groups that you all have identified, and then I'd say to the community, if there are these meetings, right, if there are these convenings of the public happening this fall, an invitation for us to join any of them would be very welcome.
I would be happy to speak to that. We
I-
have
if-
a lot.
Good, Director Beach, if I may pick up on what Director Glenn said, there's also, as she indicated, a lot of other organizations. NAACP comes to mind. There's a Kalamazoo County Trial Attorneys, a group that meet, I think, once a month. Obviously, they'd be representing clients. And so, again, bring forth what you know and educate them so they are sensitive to that as well. So I didn't mean to, by my suggestion for neighborhood associations, that was the only avenue, but there's a lot of other advocacy organizations that, again, meet regularly and are looking for program ideas.
So we had a really robust conversation around all of the different avenues to go down. What we talked about for this first kind of fall push was to get into each of the neighborhoods. So we were talking about the Edison Neighborhood Association, the Douglas Center, the Vine Neighborhood Association, Disability Network. Then really getting into those, making sure we get into the East Side Neighborhood Association, all of the neighborhoods this first push, and then we see this being an ongoing effort. So then you talk about reaching out to El Concilio and organizations that have very specific reaches and have connections within their communities, all of them. We would like this to be something that even people can request. If there's an organization that needs this education, whether it be maternal infant health programs, we want this to be available to the community as something that we can pick up and deliver.
We, to piggyback on that comment, again, along the lines of, you know, what is our mission as this board, right? And to have, you know, we were kicking around the idea of like doing this quarterly, right? I can see very quickly how, especially if organizations reach out to us, I could see how that could snowball into more frequently than that. So this initial campaign is just a starting off point. It's a jumping off point. But, you know, there is a laundry list there of organizations that potentially could host something, and we come for about 30, 45 minutes, do question and answer, and then go on with the rest of our evenings, right? So I'm hoping that in a good way, this opens up a can of worms. That's our job, right?
Thank you so much for bringing that up. Does anyone, or Director Beach, you were going to say something?
We did have a clarifying, we did want to get Attorney Robertson's clarifying, would we be able to hold in-person, would we be able to have in-person information sessions with the current COVID-19 protocols? We wanted to get that clarification from you while we had you.
That's a good question. Because I'm looking at more from the perspective of open meetings, and since that's off the table, I would say you follow whatever the COVID guidelines are, and unfortunately, due to the Delta variant, they're always kind of up in the air. I would say just practice. Again, if you're inside a building, masking is recommended, as well as social distancing. But I think you can still make a presentation even with those restrictions in place.
Yeah, we would obviously, we just wanted to make sure, as long as we follow COVID safe protocols, social distancing and all that important stuff, that we would be able to move forward. So we're going to get to work and expect some emails coming soon.
Director Beach, just a little FYI. Well, first of all, I have to apologize to the Education Committee because I have missed several. I've had like changing jobs and everything has been like crazy. So I've missed several meetings, and I'm not going to sit here and lie about that. But let's say this. I will say that I do know that, you know, I know we asked Attorney Robinson, but I wanted to chime in and say, I know for sure because I do other work, and as far as like meeting and trainings and things like that, all you have to do is wherever we go, just ask them what their entry protocol is. That's all you have to do. And as long as we're following that, we should be set. So no matter where just wherever the location is, just ask them, what are your protocols? And then you follow those protocols and we will be fine. Because I will say that there is some slight differences based on where you go and just kind of how tight the protocols are. So as long as you follow whatever they have in place, we should be fine. Because then you will be under whatever the protocols for that building is, if that makes sense.
I have a quick question, just based on what Director Brown just said. So currently I have two very small children, and I know that a lot of us have small children right now. So this is just a hypothetical, but let's say, because I know it's like pretty, COVID protocols are varying for some reason from organization to organization somehow. But anyway, we won't get into that. So like what happens if, let's say, for example, I'm set to run one of these meetings along with somebody else, and then it turns out that like their COVID protocols are just like non-existent or essentially non-existent. What do we do? Because I'm personally not gonna feel comfortable going into that space.
So I think this is Director Beach. I will speak for what we will put in the materials. I think whatever the COVID protocols are for the organization ourselves, this information session will have COVID protocols to make sure we keep ourselves and everybody safe. And we will make that very clear when we're talking with, when we are reaching out to those agencies, because we are still in a pandemic and we still want to make sure we are keeping everyone safe. Sorry, Director.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, you're fine. This is Director Harrington. I'd also like to add that we briefly talked about this in our meeting, but there are ways to ensure that if folks don't come to the meeting, let's say with a mask on, right, that we have masks at the door. And I think it's okay. You know, this may sound harsh. I don't maybe not deny entry, but strongly encourage folks to wear masks. I think that's the best that we can do. Maybe you know, set up the seats in such a way, or you know, have empty seats in between folks. I think there's a way that we can kind of regulate as much as we can safety protocols so that we all feel safe.
This is Director. Sorry, go ahead, Director Brown.
Well, I was going to say along, just kind of piggybacking off of Director Harrington, I think that if we, to Gabby, your point, if we as those that are hosting the meetings, there is another level to this, because again, I do this type of stuff. We can set, here are the protocols for whatever. So we would follow whatever the building protocols, but because you're hosting the meeting, you can add, as long as those things are posted or put within the materials or the communication that goes out to the community. That's the other, and they will then have to follow that. So keep in mind that you can do it that way as well. So we can decide, okay, for any in-person meeting for us, for any of these educational sessions, here are the parameters, if that makes sense. So of course, we have to, at the baseline, we have to follow whatever the building says, but then on top of that, we can say for our meeting, because we're hosting it, this is what we expect. So, but as long as it's communicated, it's fine. So I just want to let you know, we don't have to go into a meeting and say, oh, well, they're unmasked, so we can be unmasked. We can set a parameter for when we go and do our training. So there's another level to that.
This is Director Glenn. I also want to recommend, and I'd be happy to help organize this, that we do a community forum or training virtually for those who, because of being immunocompromised, I'm not saying this correctly, sorry, I'm also have young children, and by this time of day, it's amazing that I can form an intelligible sentence, or otherwise have access limitations and are unable to attend these meetings in person. I know that there have been some community members who've been really bringing to the fore the desire of the community to have us address disability access, right? And those issues on this committee or this board. And so I think as we think through these trainings and we think through access, we've got to be very mindful of that. And I know there are many in our community who are really being very cautious with this Delta variant. And so would be happy, again, to just do what I can to make sure we're offering something virtually.
So Director
Harrington.
That's okay. I just wanted to bring forward, just from your concerns, we did do, the city along with the Michigan Department of Civil Rights, as well as the Fair Housing Center, did the training for the landlords. I just wanted to put it out there that is training for the public. The general public is something that's being worked on at this time. There is a meeting set for next week for the same way that we did it virtually for landlords. We will be doing that for the public as well. That is something that is within the CDBG grant, or I'm sorry, agreement, which is the Community Development Block Grant Agreement. So that is something that we are working on to do the exact same training, which obviously would be virtual for those who do have those access needs that you were just specifying.
Thank you. I was actually gonna say that. So thank you very much, because we did discuss that in our meeting with Director Bonner. Additionally, we also talked about the option of still providing this virtually. So we are in no way saying that we're going to provide these trainings only in person. It's just, I think it's just the addition of in-person trainings, right? So continuing to do it virtually, but also to folks that don't have access to internet or can navigate Facebook or whatever, right? Still providing access for them to go in person. So I think it's the same thing, right? It's two sides of the same coin. We have to be mindful on both sides.
I'm happy you mentioned that, Director Harrington, because I think we pose a terrible fallacy to just believe that people have access to computers and internets and phones. This is not something that everyone has access to. And I will go on to say that, especially those that have probably suffered through much of this discrimination, a lot of this stuff happens where there's probably not a lot of communication or communication getting to those individuals to know about this. So I almost want to say more than likely would even probably believe that they don't have access. So having the in-person as another touch point, I think, is very important. And, getting flyers in the community, maybe even, finding a way to put it on a commercial somehow or get it on a news station. Hey, here's some events happening in the community, or we want the community to know about this. I just think that that's just some of the, we have to think about it in that way, because people really, I know quite a few people that have no access to any of that. Even if they have a computer, they don't have Wi-Fi. So, these are just some things to think about. So thank you for adding this in addition to what's already happening. And I think that's important for us to recognize that as well.
Thank you. This is Director Harrington. I will also add that part of our conversation within the Education Committee, because of this very issue, was to have some yard signs made that we can put in the neighborhoods where we will be conducting these in-person meetings that advertises the meeting, right? That will save us from, needing to, I don't think it's feasible to try and do mailers, right? But this is on the ground work that we're doing, which means we have to at some point understand that and reconcile budget with capacity and things like that. So one of the ideas to address that was to have yard signs to advertise the event. And also, I'm so glad that you lifted up, the radio, right? We have relationships in this community where we can go on, neighborhood radio station and say, hey, we're having this event, right? So I definitely think there are ways for us to get the word out. Because the whole point of doing this is to get as many people as possible in tune with what we're doing so that they can be educated and empowered, right? So I think we have to think outside of the box as a board and remember that we're serving the community and take into account what the community needs and actually give them that.
Thanks a lot for bringing that up. So I'll look forward to all of those emails about setting this up and anything else that we'll need to do. Do we need to vote on this or anything, Attorney Robinson?
No.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot. We're going to go ahead and move on to item 6D, which is the board 90-day goal discussion. Who wants to chime in on that?
This is Director Beach. I added this to the agenda as well. From the Educational Committee, we really we're looking at we're almost at a year into our boredomship, like as a board. And this, I think, kind of really ties into meeting frequency. We haven't found a need to meet for the past 3 months, and I don't think that's for lack of work that needs to be done or lack of work that wants to be done. So I think it would be very, I think, good. It would be a good idea as us as a board to really start being a goal-driven board. And I think a 90-day way is, what are we looking to accomplish? Whether it be just hosting sessions, it doesn't have to be large, lofty goals, but I think we need to make sure, like Director Harrington said, this is on the ground work. And I think none of us joined this board to just be on a civil rights board. I think we all joined this board to do the work. And I want to make sure we remember that. And I thought that would be nice for us to have the discussion of where we want to see ourselves in 90, and then eventually maybe longer. But I think setting some attainable goals would be great for us as a board.
I will second that, Director Beach. I think it is important that, I think for what's happening, and I'm happy that you mentioned what is our reason for even joining this board. I know when I read up on it, I really wanted to help my community. I wanted to give and assist in any way possible, the communities that I live in, right? And so I thought that this was a way to do it. Yeah, and I love the fact that, there's some goal, because what goals do is they also allow us to put actions, and then that allows accountability, right? And so this is where I think that, I didn't sign up to be on this board just to sit here and look at all your really beautiful faces, by the way. That's not what I signed up to do. I signed up to do something to help my community. And I'm going to be very honest and transparent. I don't really feel like we've done much of anything, and I'm going to be honest about that. And so what the Education Committee has come up with so far, some of the things that, we've discussed through, I would like to see that, but, let's set some goals, because goals then drives action, which I haven't seen a lot of action lately. So that's kind of how I feel. And I'm just going to be very transparent in that and very honest with the board in that. I want to do something. And I want to help my community. I want our community to benefit from our existence. And then if you think about moving forward, people want to be a part of something that's happening. Just being on the board to just say, hi, I'm Janine, is not, to me, not enough. So thank you for bringing that up and our reasons. And I hope that we all agree that we set some goals. And if the first goal is what the Education Committee is doing, and and setting some milestones and some, something in place, that would be great. I would love to see that. So I second you on that idea.
Well, I'm probably repeating myself for like the 100th time, but up until a few months ago, I have been mentioning, protections for undocumented people in the community. And one of the ideas that I was having, along with like other people in the community, was to have a panel on this board during one of our meetings to discuss. But just to backtrack, I was told, or I was informed, that one of the reasons that protections weren't or undocumented residents of the city of Kalamazoo, and that status, the legal status, wasn't a protected class or wasn't added, even though it was discussed at one point, was because, hopefully that made sense. One of the reasons it wasn't added to the ordinance as a protected class, the legal status, was because it was too difficult to figure out like what evidence of discrimination would be. So like to codify that and then be able to enforce that, I was told would be too difficult. So then one thought I had, along with other leaders in the community, was to have a panel on this during one of our meetings to discuss experiences of the undocumented community, and then maybe from that conversation pull out some of that evidence or things that we could codify to be able to enforce that or to add it to the ordinance. to amend the ordinance. So I still would really like to see that. And I know that, I mean, I have names in my head of people who would who are like so excited to be part of this. So that's one of my goals, even though it's kind of vague. I guess the big goal would be to create another protected class, which would be legal status. And that's kind of a long-term goal. But for the near future, I would love to have that panel.
This is Director Glenn. I would support that, Chair. And I believe it was in our first meeting or two where we had suggested having representative organizations or groups who can speak to some of those classes, of protected classes, right? Or unprotected classes as it is. And the very real protections municipalities can put in place at this level to assure equal access. And I would also say that I do not believe that the ordinance needs to be amended as is. I would like to see plain language in the ordinance that specifies these classes, perhaps, but as written, and I know that I feel like I'm beating a dead horse at this point with this too. As written, the protected classes are listed as for examples, right? For example, these are the types of groups that we would like to lift up as having a particular protections in our community. But that isn't to say that people who have suffered discrimination based on their immigration status do not already have protections under our ordinance as written. And I think that we not only can, but as a body already have an obligation to be lifting up what that discrimination looks like here and bringing in some of our thought leaders and experts here in Kalamazoo on what that discrimination is day in and day out. And so as we think through the next 90 days, I do think we need to start bringing in members of those groups. And I think the Michigan Immigrant Rights Center, and I know we've gone back and forth on this too, Chair De La Cruz, but bringing in whether they are attorneys or advocates, but people who provide that direct representation to speak to the more common forms of discrimination, or, again, an open invitation to the community to say, if you would like to raise something for us to discuss, please do. But I think it's time for us to do that. And I do think it goes hand in hand with what the Education Committee has talked about and having these, outreach efforts or enhancing our outreach efforts. But yeah, in my mind, it's time to really talk about the full scope. And I think this too lends itself to, our name change, et cetera, et cetera. I think the real issue before us and that we've been hemming and hawing at is let's really talk about what discrimination looks like in our community and what's happening here. And how do we get at that?
This is Director Beach. I think I could not agree more with that goal. I think that sounds like a really obtainable goal. And I think it would be great if we could, if Director Glenn and Chair De La Cruz, you guys could work together and kind of plan our first one. And I think we have a topic and I think that feels like a really obtainable 90-day goal, along with the nomination committee and filling those two positions. And then the education committee of hosting those events. Those feel like very actionable, doable, real goals for us as a board, that I think I would recommend be our goal and guiding light for the next 90 days.
I have a
Make
question.
a motion to form that committee or whatever it is. Committee, subcommittee, committee.
Director Harrington, did you want to say something?
When I hear subcommittee, my neck gets all tense right in I think I get less anxious when it's more like, oh, you guys take the lead on this, and you know what I mean. I just don't think we're big enough for
Yeah, so
5
I'm
subcommittees.
fine with that.
Yeah,
I'm also
that
fine with
was
you guys.
it.
I'm fine with that too. You guys just do that. I just don't know how that has to
Legal.
say.
Well, there would just be 2 of us, so then that would be okay for the Open Meetings Act, right? Okay, and then my second question, I guess, I don't even know if I had a first one. Anyway, I'm wondering if we should just set one of our, or like, we should just like, I can't think of the word. We should just like set one of our future meeting dates, like maybe in a month or 2 from now as that panel, and then work around that. Just like decide that now. What do you think?
I love it.
I'm down.
How do you think you would need for you and Director Glenn to possibly get that together? I mean, you tell us. To me, that's you have to kind of guide that, because I'm down for whatever. I'm here to support. So the question is, tell us how much time you need to get everyone together to have an effective meeting, and so that the communication goes out.
I think in terms of the community leaders, a lot of them, it would just be depending on like their availability. A lot of them are like extremely ready. They've been ready for months. And then in regards to like community members, I think, it would just be like, in order to get like the word out, I think maybe that would be where the time comes in. So like maybe in 2 months, 2 months from now.
So our November meeting or our November meeting?
November, I mean, that works for me.
This is Director Glenn. I agree, Chair. I at least on the points around immigration and discrimination based on immigration status or citizenship, I think we could easily assemble a panel and they're ready to go. I will also add, though, that our nonprofit leaders and advocates and activists and organizers in the community are similarly stretched very, very thin. And so would just recommend that we say, our goal would be perhaps November, and we will circle back after speaking to these very good people who give back so much to the community.
And I also would be more than, I think this would also be call for a special meeting. I think we make it available. Like, I think that is something that we also should keep on the table when we say November or that. I think we, like Director Glenn said, keep their schedules and their willingness to lend their voices to our work in mind. And if we need to come together additionally, we need to come together additionally.
Great, sounds good. So we can go ahead and get in touch with those people and then circle back. I guess we'll let you know at the next meeting, just because we're not going to have a discussion via email.
Sounds good.
I would also, I would like that if our goal check-in could be a standing agenda item. I think it's really nice to hold us accountable to our community about if we say we're going to accomplish these things, we should just check in and make sure we are all making progress.
Second.
Great. Does anyone have any other goals? I mean, it sounds like those are good for 90 days, but if anyone is thinking of anything else.
I would not say we think of anything else.
Yeah.
That's just, I'm saying. I mean, we need 2 people. You and Glenn is already on the other 3 is on the other one. Yeah, I think we good, bro. Good. Sis, I think we're good.
Great. All right. So if
over deliver.
So if no one has anything else to add to that, we'll go ahead and move on to the next item. Okay. So we're postponing the Civil Rights Board name discussion as agreed at the beginning. So the next item is 6F, and that's community activities and trainings discussion.
I feel like we had that already.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Okay. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next point. And the next point is meeting frequency. So
I would also say we kind of addressed what our next couple meetings are going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to put that out there. This is yet again, I'm sorry, I'm Tanessa Patterson. This is speaking more towards 2022. and what meeting frequency would look like. I know that we just kind of had a conversation around kind of doing the work, and obviously that would, going into the new year, would be another goal setting session. But from there, meeting frequency and possibly what that would look like. Do we see the necessity to have a monthly meeting in 2022, or given what we've seen in 2021, if we would want to meet every other month? So just trying to be proactive with that discussion.
Hi, Ms. Patterson. This is Director Ron. I think, honestly, because now there are actions and because we brought up accountability, I would recommend that we keep the same cadence of just meeting monthly, because I just kind of feel like, especially when you're doing things for the community, and we're promising things and we're doing things, you know, our life can come in and things can go by the wayside. I just really think the monthly accountability is good. Any more than that, I think is too much. But I think when we go bi-monthly, I think things get lost in the sauce a little bit. And so that's just my thought. I mean, I will be honest, I'm good for anything, but I just wanted to throw that out there. I think the frequency is good. And with, again, the ability to, if there really isn't anything to discuss, or there is a lot going on and we're all going to be in different places, you know, for whatever reason, you know, as long as that discuss and we, you know, can skip that meeting, I think that would be fine. But I kind of honestly like the monthly meeting cadence. I think 2 months is almost too much in between, especially when we were talking about these actions we want to put forth for the committee. But that's just my opinion and thoughts.
This is Director Harrington. I agree with that. And the reason why I say that is because I think originally when we set this agenda, the question of meeting cadence came up. And I'm going to be quite transparent because I feel like this board was working on lack of motivation and things to do. And from this meeting and from the really great meeting that the Education Committee had last week, I think after a year, we've discovered that we can forge our own path and decide what we care about and what our mission is for this community. And I think that we're more clear on that today. And I think we need monthly meetings now because we're going to be doing some work. So I would also propose that we stay with monthly meetings, especially now that we have 90-day goals.
I
I would
agree. Mhm. Do we need to vote on this, or do we just leave it as is? We just leave it as is.
Yeah, it already exists. So it wouldn't, so you're good as long as you're keeping things the way they are.
Great. All right, thanks everyone. So next item on the agenda is the complaint update, and I'm gonna go ahead and take care of that. So before I start, I just wanna let you all know that Tanessa will be emailing a screenshot of this information to all of you. So like, this is just kind of a quick rundown of the complaints up to this point and like where they are, where in their status is. So hopefully I can read my own handwriting. Since the Civil Rights Board started, we've had 12 resolved cases, and that means that they're either out of our jurisdiction or they've been referred to other agencies in the state. So like the Fair Housing Center or the Michigan Department of Civil Rights. So that's 12 of them have gone that way. There's one case that is waiting for, where the city is waiting for follow-up info from the complainant. So from the time that the complainant submitted the complaint, the city's waiting 6 months, giving them 6 months because they need some like important information to move forward with that. That 6 months expires on September 7th. So if the complainant doesn't come up with or like respond in any way, then we're just gonna drop that one. So let's see. And then the remaining complaints, 4 have been sent to the city attorney's office for, hold on, I'm trying to remember the order, for deciding like what the next step is. So out of those 4, one of them is regarding housing, 2 are about prior conviction records, and 1 is domestic violence. And then 3 other complaints have been approved for investigation. So once they've been sent to the city attorney's office, then, you know, it's been reviewed and then they're approved for investigation. So there are 3 that are approved for investigation currently. The investigations haven't begun, but they're just, that's their status currently. So the first one, or one of them, is about source of income, and then 2 are about prior conviction records. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I'm giving you like as much information as I can without or like to protect people's privacy. So I feel like this is like, you know, pretty, like, I think this is basic, and I think it's like, it's transparent. And then there is one complaint that's a little bit more gray area, where there hasn't been like something that has happened yet, but that's kind of like a preemptive thing. So the city attorney's office is drafting a letter to a landlord just to give them a heads up about something that could happen, some discrimination that could happen. And that's based on a prior conviction record. So that's all the information I know. And then that information will be sent out to the rest of the, well, I don't have that email, but that information, that summary will be sent out to the rest of us probably by the end of this week. And one thing I noticed while we were reviewing these is that on the date of the complaint, so that the date on there is the date that this occurred, so it's not the date that the complaint was submitted. It seemed like a lot of them have ramped up in the last few months, because like some of them say like February, and then like July and August were like where the bulk of these happened, or where the bulk of these were submitted. So I didn't want to say this during the last item on the agenda because like it wasn't part of the discussion, but this kind of like backs up the idea that we need to have monthly meetings, I think. And it also kind of, Tanessa was mentioning, it kind of seems like people are beginning to understand these ordinances, and I think that's great. And I think that as we have these educational sessions, we're probably going to see a lot more complaints, you know. So that's the update for the complaints. If anybody, if Tanessa or Attorney Robinson want to add anything, that's just kind of like the gist, my understanding.
This is Director Glenn. So I have a question about who is reviewing these complaints as they are filed. Are you, Gabby, now as chair, getting a copy of the complaints, and are you being brought into that conversation with Director Bonner and staff within the city attorney's office?
I just have, I just got this information that I gave to the rest of you. I was briefed on this before our meeting.
Have we clarified what that process is? I know we've talked a lot about our involvement in or non-involvement in investigations, right? But can we clarify if the chair of the board can be a part of that initial, I guess, instead of being briefed after the fact, which is what I think Director Glenn is getting at?
Right. Yeah, this is Director Glenn. Yes, exactly. Director Harrington, it was my understanding that as the complaint was filed, the board would be notified a complaint had been filed, the entire board, and provided with that summary. But importantly, the chair would be brought in of this board as part of the process, the investigative and deliberative process.
I think a couple of months ago, we had a meeting. It was Deshaun Houston, Director Bonner, and me, and we had a meeting, and it was sort of like that, where we like shared screen and we like looked at actual complaints. But this time it wasn't like that, so I'm not really sure. I don't remember, honestly, just because of my past month. I don't remember exactly what we had decided on. So Attorney Robinson, do you have anything to add? I mean, I'm happy to like be part of the process from the beginning.
No, I don't have anything to add. You did a good summary.
But Director, this is Director Beach. I do, is my under recollection as well, that was the process that you described, Director Glenn. So maybe it was just in the transition, it was lost in this round, but I think it is important that we kind of regroup and get back with Director Bonner and kind of start that like cadence again as we see complaints are ramping up. And I also I really do appreciate this update. I really thought it was the appropriate level of detail and gave us a nice picture of kind of where these complaints are. So I really do like that update. So thank you for that. And everyone who helped prep that.
Yeah.
And this is Director Brown. I was going to just second that. I will say I'm a little concerned. I mean, even though there was a gap or whatever is going on, I'm concerned that if we state a process, we need to follow the process. So if we say that you're going to be brought in, you need to be brought in. I was fully aware, or at least along with Glenn, I fully remember that conversation, and it was supposed to be that. So the fact that it really didn't happen that way, I'm going to be honest, I'm concerned about that. If we're going to have a protocol and people are going to trust our process, we need to follow the process. So to me, that lens, at least I'm not too comfortable with just, oh, okay, well, she just got, no, what's the process? Let's follow the process.
Well,
maybe that's my high B running out.
I want to be fair to everyone involved that we don't have a written process. This is not, I don't think this is this written down anywhere yet? Or did we I cannot remember if this was formalized.
This is Director Harrington. I know that I specifically requested for the process to be written down. I'm just going to say that again, so it's on public record.
And you did say that, Director Harrington, and I will second and third and fourth that. She has asked for that, and I thought it actually happened. So maybe I'm lost in the sauce somewhere, but I thought that that was what we agreed on. And even if it's not written down, it is what we agreed and publicly said. So why did it not happen?
So what Chair De La Cruz and I went over today was the information that I was going to be sending to everyone. It was more of a meeting in order to show her what we're able to discuss due to anonymity purposes. In regards to the actual complaints that are like more of the information, that portion we can definitely include her in. It wasn't done maliciously in any way. She's sharing this information with the board for the first time. That's the meeting that we had today. And with the information that she shared with you, that's what we met to discuss. So just in case anyone's wondering why it happened the way that it did today, obviously, we were just trying to give her the information that's necessary without all of the specifics of what comes with a full complaint, just due to the anonymity of those folks who are filing the complaints, if that's helpful. Now, in regards, and I'll give that to City Attorney Robinson, of where that process is written down, I will pass that to him. But just to speak to today and why things were handled, Chair Cruz handled the things that, said the things and handled it the way she did. That was kind of where that meeting went.
Thank you, Tanessa. And I will say that, we definitely, appreciate your hard work in getting the information to the board via Director De La Cruz. I think, we're talking about doing an education campaign, right?
Right.
Where the community knows the steps. We as a board need to know our steps, right? So, I'm not sure if the action item is, I would even volunteer with Director De La Cruz to maybe the two of us draft what it looks like and then send it to Attorney Robinson or Director Bonner. I don't know, but I just know that if we've been talking about this for a couple of months, we actually need an action item to do it, because I agree that once we do these education campaigns, more complaints are going to be coming in. The eviction moratorium also being lifted means that we might start getting more complaints, right? So we need to be very clear on what the process is from start to finish as a board and where we step in via Director De La Cruz, right? In that process, we all need to be very clear about that. And I think that it does need to be documented, as I have said before, so there's no confusion.
Thank you for saying that, and thank you for you and Chair and Vice Chair taking on that responsibility to make sure that it is documented, because that was going to be my very next point. If we're going to go out in the community and tell people this is what we're going to do, we need to be held accountable to that. And that's actually got to be what we actually do. Otherwise, it's not going to lend to a lot of building of trust and connection in our community with what we're actually doing. They're going to say, oh, they're just saying that. We need to make sure that's what's really happening. And if it's not going to happen, then that's fine too. But let's just know what we're doing, because to me, that creates more confusion and a disconnect with our community. So thank you for bringing that up, because that was really my point.
This is Director Glenn. I very much appreciate Chair and Vice Chair's willingness to draft this language. However, I really do think, Attorney Robinson, that it needs to be memorialized in the procedural document that we reviewed in our June meeting, and so that all of our procedures are in one place, right? It has to be in that document. And so I would ask that, proposing language, I think we can do, and perhaps identify the section of the of where, within the board's procedures that should be placed. But that's the document this needs to live in. And I think we all are very clear on what we had agreed would be the process, with the chair and vice chair receiving contemporaneous documentation of the complaint as it was filed with city staff, not summaries, and have access to all of the documentation filed along with the complaint. And I just want to be clear that that's what we're stating, not a summary, not the date filed, or not only, right? Not the date of the occurrence, but all of the investigative material, and to be part of those meetings and that deliberative process.
I agree with that fully, Director Glenn. Thank you for stating that clearly.
So just to clarify for me, so we want, as a board, we want me and possibly Vice Chair Harrington to be able to see the process from the very beginning and see every detail. But then once, let's say we're part of those early meetings, and once that information gets sent to the city attorney's office, then are we still part of those meetings, or is that all just the city attorney's office?
No, I believe, this is Director Glenn. I believe what we had come to consensus on was the chair and vice chair would be part of the entire process, as with Director Bonner, along with city staff from the city attorney's office.
And then do we have, as chair and vice chair, did we discuss whether we would have input on where those complaints went, or how they were filed, or how they were investigated, or are we just watching, like, just for transparency? Yeah, so the latter.
Just for transparency.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. All right, I just wanted to be clear.
This is Director Glenn. I actually don't know that we had gotten that far into the conversation about the purpose of the two board members on within that process. And I would actually recommend that they be, as Director Bonner, as city staff, that they would be participants in that process, not merely for transparency's sake. And, as we show our cards, right? I think all of us in this meeting have been pretty transparent with our frustration with, the lack of momentum in the last year. I will say that part of this was just the process of working out the kinks of figuring out the function of the board. And I think that this is a very natural process for any body to go through, especially one that has such a heavy charge. And the way that this board membership had been discussed with me prior to my appointment was that this board would actually be hearing cases, and that we should be ready as of November of last year, of 2020, to hear cases. And so I don't want us to shy away from that. right? If we're going to hear cases and we're going to get informed about exactly the substance of discrimination complaints in our community, I think putting forth the chair and vice chair as part of the investigative committee is appropriate and it's necessary. And I also would very much want, as soon as practical, to have those complaints come before this board.
And I second that as well, because that is exactly what I was told as well. And haven't seen anything yet until right now.
All right, so next steps, I guess, will be for myself and Vice Chair Harrington to work on some words to send over to Attorney Robinson, and then we can go back and forth from there, I guess. Okay, great. So if no one else has anything to add, the next item on the agenda is citizens' comments. Do we have any citizens' comments?
Yes, we do have a few. One moment.
Thank you.
Audrey Seilheimer. I'm a resident of the city of Kalamazoo. I wanted to leave a comment to ask the board to continue to do their work in a transparent, honest, and brave way when it comes to all communication with the public. So many people are cheering for you guys, and we want you to be successful and to advance intentionally towards unity and equity in the city of Kalamazoo. Thanks for your work.
Richard Stewart. I'm a City of Kalamazoo resident in the Southtown neighborhood. I am calling to remind everyone of the conversations you've had about correcting the name of the board. This is indeed not a civil rights board. It should be named accurately as to not mislead the public. Civil rights is absolutely not what this board is. It can be an anti-racist board. It can be a chapter board. It can be more accurately labeled. You have already recognized that Civil Rights Board is a misleading, it is a dishonest name for the board. If you're going to be honest to the public, you need to change your name and put priority on putting an honest name on the board. You are not representative of everyone's civil rights, and it is discriminatory for you to use the name of this board to portray something it is not. You are creating division, and you have the opportunity to remedy it. You have identified that the name was not appropriate in previous meetings and seem to have taken priority off the name correction. I encourage you to put top priority on the name correction. Thank you.
And that is all the comments we have at this time.
Thank you. Sorry, I couldn't get unmuted. Any miscellaneous comments from any board members?
This is Director Beach. I do want to lift up, as Director Herring said earlier, the eviction moratorium that has been in place since March of 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic was overturned last Thursday. So people can now be facing eviction due to non-payment. So there is assistance available though. We have the coronavirus rental assistance relief assistance, sorry. The SARA program that can assist with back rent, back utilities. So anyone who has been impacted by COVID in any way, or who is behind in the rent in any way, should reach out. They can visit housingresourcesinc.org to see the application, or call our office and get connected to somebody. There is assistance available. And it's really important that everybody knows that if you are behind in your rent, please, there is assistance available, and reach out so we can keep people housed. That's all.
This is Director Brown. Director Beach, I wanted to actually recognize you for a beautiful job well done on the on your little clip on the news. I watched you. I was like, yay. My kids, we were all cheering for you. We're like, let's Director Beach, because they apparently know you now. So anyway, so I just wanted to say thank you for that. I also wanted to just give some recognition for the work that you're doing to help those that are in need. And, you know, because they will be facing eviction. I've actually have a few people that I know that actually use that relief. And so just thank you for the wonderful work that you're doing for this community through that process. So I just wanted to just give you a little shout out and say thank you. And thank you for also bringing that up right here on the board for anyone that might be listening who missed your wonderful interview. And you look good. I tell you, you look good. So I just want to make sure that, you know, we're all aware of that. So great job, Director Beach. I just wanted to give you some recognition for that. I'm very, very proud of you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And my team is wonderful and makes me look good because they do the hard work.
Thanks, everyone. If there are no more comments, I would like to adjourn our meeting. So are there any more comments? Just wanted to, okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and adjourn our meeting.
Good night,
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you, new chair.
Bye.